That was a hard one. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. So sorry I'm late. It is 5:33. Adjustment to the agenda, there is one. We're gonna add, I believe, right, that hasn't changed, okay. We are gonna add 8.1 executive session to discuss compensation of employees pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A1. Yes, it is. 1.2, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Second, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries, thank you. The warrants are coming around now. 2.0, public comment. Do we have any? Thank you. So that leads us right to 3.0, presentation and correspondence. 3.1, the DOT Village Partnership Initiative, and I believe that is any comment?
Or cut down some more trees.
Thank you.
Jamie, that was an addition.
Sorry.
Okay. So good evening, I'm Penny Thompson, the River City Manager, and I'm just here to talk about, I pass out a flyer about our Department of Transportation Village Partnership Initiative. So you'll see on the flyer what our project area is, which is when the DOT came to us with the thought that we should be working on the Village Partnership Initiative to kind of rethink our downtown and how people move throughout the city. Jay came from NMDC and I rode around with their Region 5 person, and he said, what are your challenges in the community? And we both agreed that one of the big issues was that people travel from the high school to the community school sometimes. They're pedestrians or on bicycle, and the way our streets are, sometimes the sidewalks on this side, sometimes it's on this side. It's very close to the road. There's not a lot of vertical and horizontal separation between, young people who are using sidewalks and traffic. And the traffic is also moving fast in some of these areas. So that was something that we identified that should be worked on in the community as a long-term project. So the city council allocated the funding for us to move forward with this planning partnership with the DOT. We had a process, and Mr. Barnes was involved with that, to choose a contractor for us to work with, which is T.Y. Lynn and Razor. And they are also a team that's been working in Presque Isle. So now they're at the point that they want to engage the community. So they've done a lot of research on traffic counts and also looking at how wide our streets are, what work. But it doesn't matter if they can envision something that's feasible. If it's not something the community wants, we don't want to go forward with it. Something like this is very expensive. It's something that the city would have to put funding into to reimagine these streets. Of course, we would be going after grant funding for the majority of it, but the city will still have to invest, especially during the engineering phase, to get something done, so that we would be able to submit a grant application that would be looked upon favorably to make these changes. So the scope area, again, high school, community school, the wellness center, around the Mill Pond area, and then down to the riverfront, because the city's also working on several riverfront projects, which Mrs. Willie has also been very involved with also. So we want to make sure that any infrastructure that's advanced is something that our residents want to create. Now, it's been pretty well publicized that when Pascal was going through this process, they did not have a lot of citizen engagement. So then they got down to the final meeting and everyone was like, what is this? What's happening? I didn't know about this. So that's why I'm here, is so I'm making sure that different sections of the community know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why your feedback is important. And especially with people involved with school, because it's your population that we're trying the hardest to protect as they're moving through the city. Because we want people to be able to have that safe connectivity. And I reached out to Mr. Graves also about, I see during different times of the year, the sports teams running. And that's who I was picturing, when we were going through this process of what we wanted to address was seeing those athletes. And, I'm sure by the time they're at the end of their run, maybe their minds aren't as sharp and they may not see if there's traffic or
I
something.
think even the rec does too, right? When they're preparing for that, it's not Hershey track anymore. But I always see them running
That's right.
like down Bennett and then down that little side road and back down Glen,
So again, it's about keeping everyone in the community safe, including, our kids here. So on the 19th, which I've got the date and time, and it's at the Wellness Center, what we're hoping to do is to get engagement from citizens, and we want diverse voices to participate. We don't want to try to stack the room with people that won't have an idea that we should do one thing. We want people to come in and say, well, have you thought about this? And we want to really build a consensus around a plan that we can send to engineering. So then we can send it on to a grant proposal. So that's why I'm here. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Would they talk about, because I know we just did Bennett Drive, right, because of the new school, would they be redoing that too?
Probably not so much there. Like if you look in here, their idea was they could create this path through town. Like the white is like a shared bike lane, the purple is the bike and walking path. I don't think that they would be planning on ripping anything up.
Only because I could see walking about that, right?
Well, the other part of that is, so next summer, they're gonna be working on, light paving of Sweden Street, like that's on the agenda, like, so literally, we set the date for this meeting and I get this email from DOT, well, by the way, we're gonna be doing light paving treatment on Sweden Street. So you can imagine in DOT, like there's people on this side of the room, they're sending me emails like, okay, we're gonna do all these great things on Sweden Street. And then on the other side of the room, it's, oh, we're gonna be doing this paving and you can't have a street opening until 3 years after we're done. And I said, how is that gonna affect everything? And they said, oh, well, it's a long process, it'll be fine. But one of the nice things, and of course this year we went through this with South Main, waiting all summer with, all the manhole covers and everything dug out, for them to finally pave. And that was a DOT project. So we don't have any agency as a city to say, oh no, you need to do that now. They're paying for it, so they're gonna do it on their own time frame. But part of that project too is sidewalk improvement. And anything now that the DOT does has to include, a detectable paver, so that if someone who had vision problems, they could tell that they're having to step down. So all of that's gonna be done on South Main, any place we had new paving last year. And then with this project on Sweden Street, they won't get to the sidewalks this year, but everything next year. But that was a question that, when, like I said, I get this email from the side, oh, how's this gonna affect us?
Yeah, I just could see that.
What are we looking at for time, Penny? If everything goes, and, the plan's approved and all of that, what are we?
Well, we move at the speed of government. So, nothing ever happens fast, so we would be looking at, so if we can build consensus around a plan, well, then you have to send that to engineering, and you have to get the money for that. So you're talking about maybe they start that in 26 or 27, and then we would have to, hope that with the change in administration, all of this infrastructure grants don't also disappear, because what we have been, other communities have been relying on in the state are raised grants and also congressionally directed spending requests. So, those are kind of a once in a year, application, so probably 2029. I'll be retired before then.
You're telling me my great-great-grandchildren might be able to use
Now listen, people of any age can walk. So everyone can walk on the walking path. I hope you would have to send it for it. I'm old enough to retire, but it seems like it takes a long time. It's taken a long time for us to work on anything. Just think about the school. I can remember
the steam plant.
Yeah, the steam plant. Well, with the school, I remember we had that cafe, and Lois Brewer was the one that was in charge of that. So that's, and Mrs. Helch, she was there too. So we've gone from that to us opening the building in 2020. So it takes, a great deal of time to get through many of these things. The steam plant, although I did submit a $4 million brownfields grant on the 14th of November to finally get that one taken down.
Yay.
But who knows if we'll get it or not. So we're competing with the whole country for that. But yeah, it takes a long time. If we don't get started, the time passes anyway. So we should be working on good things for the community during that time.
Well, I applaud your efforts, because you're right, it takes a long time, but if somebody doesn't get the ball rolling and getting started, then it's never going to happen, so.
No, thank you, Penny.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
I'm gonna get to the CUD meeting so I can make my pitch to them as well.
Good luck.
Double duty. Yeah. All right. I think then that means that we will be moving to 4.0 superintendent report.
Resignations, Dave Martin, math teacher at Carroll High School. Charles Rosignol, custodian, he was a district-wide, he's kind of pitch hitting wherever we needed him. And Sarah Smart, special ed tech at the Carroll Community School. Resignations. And I don't have any, anything under 4.2, 4.3, or 4.4.
Okay, then 4.5.
Student enrollment, I believe Lori Chapman provided you with the sheet that looks like this.
Yes.
So I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm welcome to take any questions you might have, or if there's more information you'd like to know other than this at this time. As you know, in the spring, when we start working budget, we really start talking about enrollment numbers and that sort of thing again. But any questions?
No. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, we can move to 5.1, athletic director update. Mr. Graves?
I think,
I did send this to you electronically, but I have hard copies here if you want it.
Thank you.
all right, I think Ms. McCall sent the information, so I don't feel I need to read through it all, but just a couple of highlights to consider. At CCS, the numbers I think are coming back from COVID. We're trying to get kids involved. We had a fair amount come out for girls soccer, which was 25. The cross country is coming back, and we'll see that both at the high school and at CCS. And I think as the numbers grow at CCS, they'll continue to grow at Caribou High School. Looking on to Caribou High School numbers, 27% of the student population is participating in fall athletics, which again is a good number. When I look at the trend nationally, some of the team sports like soccer are down a little bit. It's not just at Caribou. Same thing is happening with basketball. There's 4 or 5 programs that traditionally have had many kids try out in the winter for girls basketball specifically. They're down with either not having a JV team or having a very small varsity team. So the trends, when I try to look at them to assess what's going on here, it's not just a Caribou thing, it's nationwide and even throughout Maine too. Couple of highlights to note. the golf sportsmanship. We always like it when our teams bring back their sportsmanship awards, so that was a highlight. I do like to recognize Caribou Country Club for working with our golf team. When I talk to some of these throughout Maine, they have to pay larger fees to utilize golf courses, and we're very fortunate to partner with Caribou Country Club, and they enjoy hosting us and working with us. So just publicly note that. Esports has been a great newer offering for us. It really allows kids that maybe wouldn't traditionally participate, gives them a connection with an adult, and a chance to represent Caribou and do something that they're passionate about. And there's a big push right now with a lot of scholarships for esports. So hopefully some of our kids can take advantage of that down the line. The other highlight that I would say we're looking forward to is the unified basketball program will be starting up here again in January. And that is just an amazing program. There's one young lady I got to talk about on the team that I think it was the first or second day of school when I saw her and said, "How are things going?" She's like, "When's basketball start?" So, to her, that means everything. And I think that's what these, programs are about. And also just, to note the soft skills that these kids are learning through participating in athletics. It's amazing to see that the work ethic, we have the teamwork that they can gain. I saw a young man today, former athlete who works for Dead River, and he's putting those skills to use of being on time management. He has a role in that program where he works, and he's a team player no matter what he does. So it carries over to the workforce, and I think that's important to note when these kids are coming through. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Any questions? Thank you.
For the update. New business, 6.1, consider policy GBCC, employee use of cell phones. I'll turn that over to the policy subcommittee.
I think we're getting ready to say this could be a final read. We had a first read on the 6th, so the new language, it was just more specific to school-owned devices and regardless of the language, and then just, language behind it. We're recommending a final read.
So, thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. 6.2, consider the 2025-2026 harvest break. Ms. McCall and Mrs.
If you don't mind, Mrs. Willie, just hand that around. So last spring, as you were working through the budget, one of the items that we had added was the possibility of eliminating the double calendars, the 2 calendars, and combining so that all of our students pre-K through 12 start and end on time and potentially get out for a harvest work. And we decided to, as we massaged the budget, we decided to not eliminate that because we really hadn't had the opportunity to have a lot of discussion about it with farmers or even with our staff or community. So we decided to continue for this year. So at this point in the juncture, after the potato harvest break ended, the 2-week potato harvest for 9 through 12 ended, Mrs. Selfridge sent out this survey to all of the students 9 through 12 at Caribou High School. Now, you'll notice there are 329 responses, so it's not 100%. Some students chose to not complete it, so we'll recognize that. But basically, about 21% of our students work potato harvest, not extra hours at Subway or Hannaford or wherever. They work actually potato harvest. So we gathered from that information. They also provided us the farmers' names of who they worked for. So we took that list, and it was approximately 21 farmers. There are some farmers that had 8 or 9 students work for them. Other farmers, many of them had 1 or 2. So we contacted the 21 farmers that either lived in or grew potatoes, or their farms were in Caribou, Stockholm, Limestone, Woodland. We do have some students that worked in Fort Fairfield, but we didn't reach out to those farmers. So I sent them a letter, invited them, I think it was November 1st, asked if they would come and have a conversation with me and share their thoughts about if we were to explore the possibility of going to a 1-week harvest break, and allowing the students, 9 through 12 students, to have 10 flex days. So ultimately, a student could still work if they're working potato harvest, and we have evidence from the farmer and parent permission, if we have that evidence, they could potentially still work for 3 weeks potato harvest, if that is what is needed. And so really, all of the farmers, a couple of them actually asked me why we're having potato harvest at all. And I said, well, I don't know, so we're ready to quite go that deep yet. The proposal that we gave was actually the calendar that you have in front of you. The date that we had initially suggested to them was a week later, meaning instead of getting out the week of the 22nd, we had proposed the week of the 29th to be the 1 full week pre-K through 12 is out, and then they could harvest. They suggested and asked if maybe we would consider moving it ahead 1 week because the potato harvest keeps creeping down. We tend to try to follow it with ending it on Indigenous Peoples Day. So that way we have a break, and then the kids actually would get an extra day because of that holiday. And we even tacked on historically, we've been tacking on a workshop the day after Indigenous Peoples Day. So then that gives even another extra day. So, you know, those are all options that we can discuss later when we look at your, when I share with you a proposed calendar with workshop days and early release days. Typically, we do that in January or February. So that was the feedback, pretty much so that I got from the farmers. They had a lot, you know, they concerned about, they haven't, students coming to work for them, the farmers that had them, the students all couldn't stay the whole day because they had other obligations such as practices or whatever. So it was, like they said, you know, we don't say no to them. We're going to hire them. We want kids if they want to work, but it was kind of like, sometimes they come to work for 3 or 4 hours and then they have to leave. And so it really isn't necessarily a benefit to the farmer because then they've got to fill in those voids. You know, age and liability have posed greater concern with younger students on the farm, and harvest provides a great opportunity for great work ethic. So my proposal to you is to ask you to consider us moving to a 1 week harvest break, pre-K through 12. Everybody would be out for that 1 week. So school would actually begin, workshop days would be August 18th and 19th, and all the students would start on the 20th, which is 1 week later for the high school and 1 week earlier for the communities, so to speak. This does have a positive financial implication. I think Mr. Bouchard, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about a $15,000 or $20,000 savings when we go to one calendar, because we do have itinerant staff that goes between the 2 buildings, and we pay them extra because they work an extra 2 weeks compared to the other people. And along with busing, transporting, all the things you already know. So it's about a $15,000 or $20,000 savings. So the reason why I'm bringing this to you so early and also kind of outside of the traditional approval of the calendar is because I know that a lot of families plan their staff as well, plan their vacations. And I think the sooner we could let families know that this is a change, and then hopefully they won't plan. For some, they might even take advantage of that week and vacations for that time. So that's why I'm coming to you so early with this. But the conversation with the farmers was great. They were 100% were understanding and positive. 6 came to the meeting. We had cinnamon rolls and coffee and
How many more would have came to think of that?
2, well, I told them in the letter.
Oh, you did?
I did. And that was the cooks at the high school. I can't take any credit for the cinnamon rolls. But there were a couple of farmers that were unable to make it, and there are some of the larger farmers, they actually employed the majority of our students. So I went to the factory sheds and met with them, and pretty much so heard the same thing. But I wanted to make sure that they had a voice in it because they have a lot of
What's a farmer's daughter, always a farmer's daughter. You know where the packing sheds are.
I do.
So my only concern in having been like a parent to a kid that worked harvest and happened to work one year where, you know, had to go like that, not be in school for a week because of the way the farm is. And I don't know what the answer is, but missing 10 days, potentially missing 10 days is like an academic plan for that, because that's hard. And, you know, in our situation, you know, like Luke was working from 6:30 to 7 at night so to ask him to come home and do homework till 9, 10 o'clock, I mean, he was outside. And so that's the only thing that would concern me is for kids that might lose 10 days. Because teachers can't stop teaching, right?
And we did talk about that. We talked about, we have to really, I think Mrs. Selfridge will be talking with her staff about how can we work with students that are gonna be out for those extra days.
Is there an alternative to maybe that big homework? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I just know like,
And also allowing them the appropriate amount of time to make up the work.
right,
You know, I mean, we don't want it to linger on until June,
right.
of course, but, you know, making sure that they have an appropriate amount of time. The other thing is, if there's a day that the equipment is broke down and they can't farm,
And they
they
should
can't
have
harvest for the day, or it's raining, they
raining.
can come to school that day, you know.
I wanna say when Luke did it, the farmer he worked for had to, on like rain days or days of work, she had to submit like who worked that day, so. Cause that wouldn't be an unexcused if they, does that sound right? I'm not sure.
And another option too, and we can talk about that once again when I come back to you with the full calendar proposal, is we can always add a workshop day on before that week or after that week, or both, whatever the choice is. And that would allow those students that you're talking about, instead of having 10 days in this, it would actually be 8, because two of those days be outside of that 1 week.
Yeah,
That's another option, which I suspect we would at least put one workshop, either before or after for sure. As far as the second one, I want to talk with the administrators about that. But we did talk about that.
it's a hard thing, cause you don't wanna discourage your kids from working, cause it is a hard job, and I think it does give them a lot of work ethic, but missing 10 days of math, well.
Now, we got a case now, or?
For this year, we're still in case. What I'm monitoring is our activity in case, meaning how many participants do we have actually attending any of the case offerings. For example, the case workshop day, don't quote me on this number, but I believe we had six or eight staff from RSU39 that actually participated.
What do we pay the in-case?
Pardon me?
We pay the in-case?
$100 per student, so we pay almost $12,000
For 6 people to attend?
for that day. They have other offerings throughout the year, but I don't know. So I've asked the administrators to keep some data on how many people are participating, so at the close of this, or getting close to the close of the school year, we can revisit that. I didn't have that data before, so I didn't really have that. And this was the first year also, I should say, that it was not mandatory that every teacher from RSU39 attend case. In the years past, it's been an expectation. And what I've heard again and again and again on the surveys is sometimes it's just not a good professional development opportunity. It's a great PD offer, it just doesn't pertain to them. Guidance counselors, nurses, social workers, care group textbook specialists, on and on. So, you know,
It's limited.
you have to listen to people. If this isn't meeting their professional development needs.
But if we're not getting a return on our investment, then we need to revisit it. I do have a question about the calendar, because I know in years past, when we were looking to realign harvest, was an issue for tech and alignment with sending schools, so.
Yep, so as far as tech, I've already talked with Amy about it, it's not a problem there. And as far as Washburn and Presque Isle, I think it will still work because they are out and it's still going to overlap because Presque Isle's out for, I think, 3 weeks. So this is one of their 3 weeks. And I've been talking with Mrs. Staples, the superintendent in MSN 20, and so she was kind of waiting to see because they may decide to go the same week as completed. They may, I can't obviously make my commitment, but, so that wouldn't be a problem for the 5 days difference. We've had to apply for waivers for the past years, and so.
That's right. And just doing some simple math, it was about, 71 kids. So how many, again, remind me, how many kids are in the high school? 440. I know, it's right there, never mind, sorry. But just based on the responses that came, that's 71 kids out of 329. It's
And
not
there
a
is
huge.
There's
huge
one
number.
farmer left in Aroostook County that I'm aware of. I think he's the only one that has all hand pickers. And so an opportunity for him maybe to have some 6, 7, and 8 graders now would have an opportunity to get potatoes. Because they're certainly old enough that his family chooses for them to. So that could open more students to help him out. Because he's the only, STEM is the only.
Well, the argument part was when we had just high school and not younger school for babysitting, but if they're both out and they have, you're gonna have access to kids to help watch the younger kids, right? If it's all on campus or something.
And know about it early.
Yeah, knowing about it early is key.
My only concern was before this is cemented, maybe to have more conversation, because I know they would prefer a week early because they think harvest will be, who knows? It's always a crapshoot when harvest is done. I mean, this year they were almost had all the potatoes out of the ground before the harvest even took place. So anyway, if we could push it so that it's 6 weeks and it then breaks a semester, you've got progress reports coming out that, if rather than having 5 weeks of break and then your 6th week for the trimesters, and I don't know where progress reports are for high school. No, I know you don't, but when do progress reports come out from high school for the first? Is it October? So it wouldn't affect high school, but I'm thinking for the trimesters at the community quarter ends like November 2nd. Yeah.
Did they send progress reports the first trimester?
The first semester. Yeah, they do.
First trimester, yes.
So anyway, I'm just thinking it would give you a full 6 weeks, so progress reports could go out. And then when they came back, I just think that's a great time, even for teachers, to relook at their classrooms and see, what tweaks they have to make and stuff. Again, I got my elementary hat on.
Is that another benefit that I forgot to mention, especially with the high school, is the NWEA, the NOVIA testing. By having a 2-week harvest break, it has always left our students with only, what did you tell me?
There's a 5-week window, and this year where harvest fell and with the holidays and the workshops, we only actually got 2.5 weeks of that window to complete the testing for the state, which was really problematic. So having that extra time is extremely helpful.
Does it matter one
Does
week
it
or the
matter
other?
one or
Does
the
that
other?
impact the NOVIA testing?
No, because typically, no.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I think that week earlier will actually help us because I think typically the window starts at 29th.
Yes.
So that week is the week that we could be testing. So to move it back would actually lose a week. Yeah. So if we keep it ahead, it would help us.
Is there, I personally don't have a problem approving this if we go for a week, but is there an issue with, if there's still hesitancy with the other board members as far as what week? Can we still approve that we are going to 1 week and our start date is X and our end date is X? Because that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're, so that parents know when we're starting and when we're ending.
It's your, I'm good with whatever. I just, and if you're not comfortable deciding tonight if this is true, and we can wait until the next meeting is January, Because I wanted to let families know.
You know, and I appreciate Lou's comments, but because we are changing some of the potato farmers, I would rather support their request first.
I could go either way too.
That's just how I feel about it.
I always thought years ago when we looked at it, I always thought we kind of went late anyway, because being friends with farmers, they were usually, I think, I would be curious to see, I think a lot of kids probably would miss before, because they were already
I
starting.
just think their flex days might change before, not after.
I will say,
Right.
I was in the meetings and it was a very resounding voice, and they could really take or leave whether we were 10 days, 15 days, or a week. But there was a commanding voice of getting harvest in RSU39 early.
Yeah, I always.
I just feel strongly we need to support that.
So are we ready to vote on it, or? I
I'm
can
fine
go
with it.
either way, I just,
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
So I'll make a motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think Mrs. McCall needs to be applauded for her efforts in this. I've been in this district long enough and sat through some conversations in regards to harvest, and we all know that tradition, and I think Mrs. McCall went through this very methodically. I think she had a very well approach, and I think she needs to be applauded for her efforts in regards to this in our community, so.
No, absolutely. It's a big change, and having the support of the people that it affects the most is huge.
That's an old in the packing shed.
Just brought back memories. I should have brought my pitchfork with me and just.
My old knife
to cut seed by hand.
But I'm sure they appreciated it too, and it keeps that relationship bridge open. So thank you.
Well, and I think the farmers are some of our biggest supporters, so it's.
Fair, when they pay a lot of taxes.
Yes, they do. But you're right, I remember maybe years ago in Prescott.
That was amazing.
Here too. Oh,
That must've been
here
long.
too.
Yeah, it was. I remember.
Yeah, I
Yes,
can
it
see by
was.
your face that you got PTSD.
Why do you think I offered cinnamon rolls?
No, but just to put them around the table to have a voice means a whole lot,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And they were very appreciative to be heard. They were very open to suggestions and listening to the other side of it. There was one gentleman I do not know that came up to me right after, like face to face, and said, I came here thinking, this is the way it was gonna be. Like, this is harvest. And now I listen to you all, I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like saying about himself, and so it was very well done.
At least we get to keep the tradition alive, which
Yes.
is nice, and marry the current needs of the school, but kind of honor the cultures and traditions that are unique to us, and I like that idea, and I like that they had a voice and that we can at least support their request for that earlier week. It's good.
Just wanted to add a question onto this. So then when will you be putting, do you have your workshops and your early release days in that calendar?
No, no, that will come, usually it's February-ish, I think, so you'll get to see it. And that's when, and usually I meet with administrators, we talk about what they would like to see, they reach out to their staff and have conversations, so early release days and workshop days will be decided, like I said, probably February.
So what you just approved is the last week of September?
It's actually, and you're welcome to have this.
Or would it be the recommendation that came up with earlier in September?
I think it's
The week of
It's
22nd.
the week of the 22nd.
No, it's almost the last week. It's the last full week.
Yeah.
of September.
So from the 22nd to the 26th.
And I think most farmers, they I think they start playing in the dirt around the 16th, 17th, and then then on that Monday, they go.
Well, the reason why I asked that is that they were out big in the first week of September this past year.
Right.
They were planting in April.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a way of the
Yeah,
future,
I do too.
just for given climate change and things of that nature.
Well, that may be something to consider too, after we see how this next year goes, I mean, that was just, it could be one.
All the way back.
Yeah, the 10 days could be front loaded too. If it's another year like you're describing, they could actually do their 10 days and then the full week would be the third week for them. So it does, those 10 flex days, what are nice,
So speaking on the flex days, have you considered doing an ELO proposal for those days?
I have not, but I don't know if Mrs. Selfridge or.
Because rather than it being punitive to the kids that are out and away from the classroom, if you had an ELO
Certainly.
proposal to that,
Certainly something that we
that could be
could
something
look
to
at.
consider. I think it would soften the blow. Parents and kids.
I think as long as, you know, I can't speak to all the specifics, but as long as it would meet the criteria of an ELO and the expectations. Like we expected all the other ELOs.
I feel like some of those kids that work hardest anyway did ELMs on, like last year. Kids that graduated last year, I think there was a few kids that were farmers that,
It might be something to avoid a lot of extra work that, over time, maybe not next year, but they develop what's kind of like a standard ELO for our harvest experience. That way it's, kids know in advance, if you're gonna choose to do the ELO, these are the elements. That would be a good chance, But I mean, you probably get it over time, but just because otherwise we have to develop 71 ELOs.
We would have to develop something specific
Right, that's
to
what
the
I'm thinking.
harvest, because one of the key components to the ELO is it's credit bearing and it's for a given amount of time. So like the 3 weeks is not a valid amount of time with the program right now to align with credit, because we give the half credits, the full credits. So we would have to design something specific for harvest, and maybe it works out to be a quarter credit or something along.
That's what I'm thinking, that would at least help, then you could just say, these are your criteria, you choose to participate, you're not having to develop 71 each year.
Certainly worth exploring.
And it'll be an experimental year. They asked for the week earlier because they were in the ground earlier. And this year will be the experience and see how it goes. And if it's positive, it's positive. We keep moving forward. If it's not, then we can come back to the drawing board next December.
I think it would be helpful to get a postal survey or just to follow up with them after the first year, just to see how did it go? Did you notice a decline in your student? Did it affect your workforce? Just, you could have some, some questions and follow up just to get some feedback.
Off for coffee cake at that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other matters. Start down. Tanya, any?
I know.
Jan? Cool.
I agree.
Ms. McCall?
I don't have anything on that.
Perfect. So with that, we move to 8.1. The board will enter into an executive session to discuss compensation of employees pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A1. So thank you. Is there a second? On discussion. All in favor? We are in executive session.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.